Today I'm going to undertake rebuilding or overhauling the pump, and so I'm going to be replacing all of the O-rings and seals in this pump and see if that takes care of all the problems. First thing I'm going to do is to open the valve because I'm going to be cutting the pipe that goes from the pump to the filter. Okay. I can't find my channel locks, so I'm going to have to use this. Oh, that was quite loose. I must not have tightened it in far enough when I installed this thing, or when I installed the filter. It looks like it was in all the way. Maybe I didn't have enough Teflon tape. Anyway, this is now to be discarded. This is the piece I'm going to replace along with the O-ring. Start here. It's a 14 millimeter size bolt. Yeah, I have it apart. On this side of the housing, there's nothing to deal with. I'm just going to need to clean off the actual edges here. The O-ring is here, but here's another O-ring here. I also have to remove these bolts here. These guys. And then this part will come off. Next, I take off the bolts from this back side. Okay, so that comes off. I guess this is the impeller right here. And the seal is down below that. Insert a screwdriver in the back so that you can hold this shaft steady, or just loosen the screw here clockwise. Okay, so now that we have it separated and the screw out of the impeller, I think you just unscrew the impeller off the shaft. Okay. That's the cover off. Let's get some leverage on my screwdriver back here that's holding it. There we go. I think that did it. All right. And there is the seal. And that comes off. There's a seal there as well. And crud build up here because this section right here is open to the air. So I'm going to have to clean all of this out, knock out the seal, or knock out that seal. Or is this the seal? Oh, this might be the seal. Yeah. Anyway, all of that has to happen. Okay. I've cleaned up the two parts here. Now I have to take out the seal components. This one, I believe, I just pry it out of here. Okay. And then I'm going to clean all this out as well. And this part I have to knock it out from here. Like that. And I'll have to clean this part out as well, but this is the old seal. I understand this is the part that goes bad because this is the ceramic part right here. And I've got a new set of these along with all the O-rings that I need to replace in the process. I have my new cover for the tank there, nice and clear, clean, so I can see into it. And this kit of parts, it's got all the O-rings I need, as well as the new seal. which is neatly wrapped up here. I understand I'm not supposed to touch the ceramic part because it's very sensitive to skin oils and contamination, so I have to be very careful when I unwrap that and put the silicone, which is right here, around the rim of it as I seat it into the housing. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to get the new seal in place. Alright, so I've cleaned up the parts. I reached in here because there was some buildup of sediment, so I reached in there with some emery cloth, very high grit sandpaper, and kind of gently scrub that out. Same thing over here. There was some calcium buildup on the outside of that shaft, and I cleaned all that up, so I'm ready to go. Oh, one thing, I need to be ready with an appropriate insert to be able to tap this into place. And I understand it's a 1 1/4. Yep, I happen to have a 1 1/4 socket, so that's what I'm going to use to tap it into place. It fits perfectly over the rim of the seal. I think I want to get a socket that fits on that to push it all the way in properly. There we go. 1 1/8 socket works for that. Okay, next we'll do the ceramic part. Probably does not require silicone, but I'm going to put some on anyway just to make it easier to set in place. And it's set in place. Okay, next I'm going to put this guy back on here.
Alright, I'm screwing in the new adapter. Got my Teflon tape on it already. Hand tight, and the recommendation is to give it 2 more complete turns. 1 and 2. Next, this guy back onto the rest of the pump. Then we'll get the bolts in. I'll keep these bolts loose until all of the bolts are seated. We're going to tighten these in increments. Last thing I have to do is to put in a new piece here.
Well, I've finished doing the pipe on the outlet of the pump. But now I see I have a leak up there at the inlet to the filter. Okay, so the source of my leak is right here. When I redid that part of the pump inlet pipe, this part is too long, so this whole thing sits a little bit too high to mate with the inlet of the filter. So I have to redo this. Alright, so I'm gonna have to go get a new coupling, cut this, and I need to cut maybe a 1/4 inch of this, maybe even 3/8 of an inch out, and then it should allow this to line up, because this is, looks like it wants to be about almost a 1/2 inch lower. So yeah, I need to cut 1/2 inch out of here. I ended up cutting about 1/2 inch of pipe out of right here. Got a new coupling and glued it all back in, and while I did that, I made sure that it got here fairly level. So now it's not leaking anymore. Well, as it turned out, the excessive air bubbles getting into the system wasn't necessarily due to the seals in the pump. It turned out that this valve, this is the valve that controls the suction from the pool, or this is the pool side, from the pool or the spa, the drains coming from them and into the pump. Well, this seal, there's an O-ring in here that's on the shaft. That was the guy that was leaking. So it took me a while, but I found a seller on eBay that was able to get me the right size O-ring. I had to get a kit of a whole bunch of these O-rings, but this one was the only one that I found that was leaking. Well, this is the only one on the suction side, so that's the one I needed to replace. And when I did that, no more air bubbles getting into the system. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Does that help? Anyway, there's no new bubbles getting in. What you see there are leftover air bubbles from just everyday operation. But it no longer has the running dry problem. So problem solved. I have the new seals and O-rings in the pump, and I have a new O-ring in that valve. So everything's working smoothly now. Well, that's it for today's video. That was a challenging exercise, replacing all the O-rings and seals in both the pool pump, and as it turned out that I needed a new O-ring in the suction side valve, and that took care of, between those two operations, it took care of the excessive air getting into the system. It took me about 2-3 weeks to track down and get the O-rings for the valve, but I did, and everything is fine now. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe if you haven't already, on that little button on the corner, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.